So this video is a follow-up from last week's focus on vibrato. You'll see that all of this material is certainly connected. In some ways it is a continuum and a sort of progression from easier exercises to the harder, more complex exercises. But anyone who has tried to improve something that is difficult or develop a skill or refine an idea knows it is never a linear journey. And you only set yourself up for disappointment if you expect it to be linear. Things will get better and they'll get worse again and they'll get better again. I strongly advise you to embrace this up and down. So in this slightly shorter video, we are touching upon the following specifics. Firstly, a little focused workshop using the famous meditation from Thais to practice everything that we've discussed in the previous video. The second will be focused on vibrato in high positions. So perhaps that's more for those a little bit more advanced, but interesting for anybody who is looking to progress on vibrato and on the violin. And the third will be examples of various different and distinct styles of vibrato. I want to really encourage all of you to start sending in comments, questions, even video clips or audio clips, because vibrato is so personal. I think we'll all greatly benefit from a bit more of an open dialogue on how to improve it. So please don't be shy. Okay, let's get started. I thought I would pick probably the most played, potentially overplayed piece of violin music, meditation. But one of the wonderful things about meditation is that you start in third position with the third finger and you kind of stay, you play all of the fingers, but you stay in that position within the first few bars. So I would highly recommend, you don't have to play the whole piece, just take those first 2-3 bars and use that as a way to apply an exercise to a beautiful melody. What I'm going to do now is use more of a kind of clinical wrist vibrato than I would naturally use, but just for the sake of relating it to the exercise. This is not how I actually play meditation. This is for an exercise. So please don't judge if it sounds a little bit unmusical. One thing you'll notice is that I actually start vibrating a little bit before my hand comes to the string. What you have to remember with every single technical exercise, in the end, use your ears. Your ears are going to tell you exactly how you want to sound, and they're going to send messages to your hands to do things that then please your ears. So never switch off. When you get to the point where you're applying a technique to a piece of music, you want your ears to guide what you end up doing. But meditation, first 2 bars, best thing to practice vibrato on. One thing that is so important is that you have an excellent anchor. So much of the time I see people's thumbs just roaming around the place and they're just not providing any strength. So if you think about it, you're pushing down with the finger here. If you don't have anything pushing back, whether that be your shoulder or be the thumb, something has to push back to the finger so that you can push down. Otherwise your violin is literally going to fall on the floor. So that's one thing that I would practice. You can do it without a bow. Practice feeling the strength between the thumb and the finger. You can do that with all the fingers. So, and for me, when I'm playing up high, I do use more. It's kind of a combination of arm and wrist and a hand vibrato. So I don't know if you can kind of look at the whole arm. It's sort of all 3. But what I will practice more than anything else is feeling this kind of strength and solidarity between the thumb and between these fingers. And this is a place, although I advocate constantly for the fingers being not tense and you having a kind of relaxation in your fingers, it sort of doesn't apply when you're playing up here, because you need to really apply quite a lot of pressure. So that's something you have to develop. Hold onto the instrument with this hand and then just experiment with how can I free up this part of my hand but have a strong anchor here and a strong anchor here. So this is something that the wonderful teacher Anna Chumachenko spoke to me about quite a lot when I had some lessons with her. She's the teacher of incredible violinists like Lisa Batishvili, Julia Fischer and Vilde Frang. In fact, she suggested that I practice freeing up the centre of my left hand whilst developing strength between the thumb and the placement of the finger or the tip of the finger by practicing vibrato in thirds and octaves and a variety of double stops. So here's an example of this, but I would urge you from the get-go to be extremely careful. I actually way overdid this exercise after it was suggested to me and ended up with all kinds of aches and pains in my left hand. So my hands honestly are particularly weak and troublesome. I'm really often getting little aches and pains and things that I can't explain, and I have like zero muscle in my arms also, which isn't helpful. So it might be there for you, there's no issue in practicing this, but I would say just stick to some basic rules. So if you feel serious fatigue or pain in your hands, your fingers, your arms, your shoulders, just stop and reassess what you're doing. Don't push yourself past a certain level of discomfort. So this is me trying out exactly that exercise, practicing thirds with a vibrato that tries to focus on freeing up the hand whilst having quite a strong anchor, not just with one finger but with two fingers, and then quite a strong anchor behind with the thumb. So I started off just with not making a sound and feeling a sense of comfort and no, actually it's not comfortable. It's extremely uncomfortable for me, but just focused on my left hand, and then of course add the right hand and start sounding ridiculous, but it's all for a good reason. I actually find this exercise extremely difficult, uncomfortable, awkward, sometimes painful. I can't do it for very long. You just have to find your own comfort with this exercise. You'll see I'm doing a mixture of major thirds and minor thirds. I'm going between different strings. I'm doing the first and third finger and the second and fourth finger, and I'm absolutely not engaging my bicep muscle at all because I'm just trying to kind of strengthen my hand in isolation. Like I said, this is not an exercise that I enjoy doing, and it's one I have to be really careful with because it's the exact kind of exercise that there we go, so I'm having to shake out my hand because it gets kind of tired. So I think I'm going on to octaves now, and I have never really developed an octave vibrato that is predominantly within my hand. All of my octave vibratos have predominantly come from my arm, so it's more, I guess, what you would call a full arm vibrato. And that's not necessarily to say that it's not a good idea to practice the opposite. You don't always practice what you end up doing in performance. Sometimes it is very good to challenge and develop your hands, test their boundaries, and not necessarily stick to what sounds best and stick to your comfort zone. So that is definitely what I'm trying to demonstrate to you all now. I think at some point I'm gonna start engaging more. I'm obviously trying to free up my thumb because practicing it like this I can find quite tiring. I'm sure this all sounds absolutely ridiculous. That's more like a shiver. And what can happen sometimes when you're practicing vibrato is you go from a pace that's controlled to one that is too fast. Now this is maybe a little bit more like the vibrato I use when it's sped up, obviously, when I'm actually performing. So I would say what my bicep muscle actually feels like at this point is like it's working somewhat. It feels kind of engaged. It doesn't feel completely passive. But I'm just going between the various motions and kind of testing. Oh, that's definitely like a shivery vibrato. You don't want to do that. I thought it would be also useful for you to see the vibrato exercises from this angle. You can see what my thumb is doing, and what this video demonstrates more than anything is my experimentation. I'm going between all kinds of different ways of vibrating and testing them out. Lots of things that don't sound good, lots of things that are not comfortable, lots of things that are in between phases. And I think that's an important thing to demonstrate and to show. I think it's something that no matter what stage you're at when you're playing, you should keep that up, a sense of experimentation. It's what we've talked about so far in every video, but I greatly believe in that because you have to come up with your own style. So this is just demonstrating that from this angle. Of course, I'm doing thirds and octaves and arm vibrato, engaging my wrist more and engaging my hand to different degrees. One little sneaky tip from me where I'm playing a really high note, I actually use a kind of vibrato where this knuckle stays tense and this one is bent. So that one's straight and that one's bent. And the vibrato looks a little bit like that. And for some reason that gives me a really good, powerful, strong sound up high in the instrument. The dreaded fourth finger vibrato. An example of that weird looking third finger vibrato thing. The sweetest kind of vibrato you can muster, which is some magic weird combination of all styles. Vibrato that requires a bit of tension because it's meant to be fierce. I really hope that at least some of those tips were helpful, and let me know if you have any other questions. I'll try to answer them. Thank you.